You belong among the wildflowers. You belong on the road out at sea. Sail away of the hours. You belong somewhere free. Run away, go find a lover. Go away, somewhere bright and new. I've seen others who compares with you. You belong among the wildflowers. You belong on the boat out at sea. You belong with love on your arm. You belong somewhere. You belong among the wildflowers. You belong on the sail away through all the hours. You belong somewhere. You belong
So, Dr. Justin, I know that is only 5
Thank you for having me today.
So I've been with the company for 6 years. Back in the 90s, I ran our office in Bakersfield until it got up and going. And now I'm here in Oneida. It's our newest office to try and help get them up and going.
There it is. All right. Thank you, Caleb. We appreciate that. Again, thank you everyone for attending. It's good to see everyone. Sorry for the moonlighting there for just a moment. We'll blame that on Dustin, since he's usually not here and he had to step out to help get that back on. But at this time, we have Ranger Daniel Banks, who's going to tell us about some of the history of the Big South Fork, and we'll turn it over to him for a little bit of education.
Well, hello everybody. My name is Daniel Banks. I'm the education specialist for the 3 national parks that are close by. So I work at Big South Fork out of Danny Creek, and I work down at the OVED in Warburg, and I work out of the Children's Museum down at Oak Ridge at the Manhattan Project National Historical Park. So my audience typically are 4th graders. So I will do my best to talk with you guys. But when I was looking at the theme, when we were kind of reflecting on the past, I wanted to talk a little bit about Big South Fork and how the park got here. But I realized that, it's a pretty well-known topic, a lot of people know, and I'm going to talk to you guys for about 20 minutes. So I kind of switched it up, so I'll kind of explain it. So all national parks, there's about 400 different national park sites throughout the country. I've worked at 6 different ones. I've been here about 6 years. I moved here from Washington, D.C. But all parks have a story of how they kind of became. They all have a birthday, and all of them have a patron saint. Someone who stepped up, who kind of took the reins to get the park established, and all parks took forever to become a national park. So Big South Fork fits all of those criteria. We had a birthday, which is March 7th of 1974, and we have the patron saint, who is, do you guys know who he is? Howard Baker, the Senator Howard Baker that was here. And we all took forever. So it took about 20 years for Big South Fork to be kind of established and up and running as a national park. Just real briefly about Howard Baker. He had been a senator for many, many years. He retired after being ambassador to Japan, and he ended up, passing away here in Huntsville. I think in 2014 was when he passed away. But he was a senator for many, many years, and along with his father, who had been a senator, they had tried to figure out some good ideas for the property that was here and how they could use it. There were stories of dams that were to be built at several different locations on the river, which was very common at the time. One of the parks I worked at was Lake Mead outside of Las Vegas, which was a big New Deal project with FDR. So all throughout those decades, there was the talk of dams that were to be built here at that point. But in the 60s, things kind of changed. We had the Environmental Protection Act, the Clean Water Act, that type of thing. There were a lot of environmental movements that took place in the 60s. And so by the time the 70s came around, they kind of switched gears a little bit, and they ended up thinking, could we, instead of building a dam and making a lake here, could we not somehow protect the property and the river itself? And that's how the idea of it becoming a national park. National parks, in general, we are preservationists. So there's a lot of other organizations like the Forest Service, for instance. They're conservationists. So they allow logging and mining and that type of thing, grazing on Forest Service property. For the most part, National Park Service, we're preservationists. We like to keep things exactly the way that they always have been. If you go to Gettysburg now, we try to preserve it so that it looks the way that it did back in the 1860s when the war took place. So that's real briefly how the park came. But what I wanted to focus on was how the park actually became constructed here. Because I don't know if you guys remember, but do you guys remember the Highlights magazine? My favorite part of the magazine was that picture where you had to try and find everything. And so I went, last week I went to see our archaeologists, and they've been in the process of digitizing a lot of photographs that we have. And so we have hundreds and hundreds of photographs of the park being built. And so I had heard stories, of what Leatherwood Road used to look like and how Leatherwood Road going out past Black Oak, and I live at Angel Falls. So they would say, your road used to not be paved going out into the park, that type of thing. But all these pictures, hundreds of pictures, I got to kind of see that. And it reminded me of those Highlights magazines. And so I brought with me some of the pictures that I wanted to talk to you guys about. And the first one is, there's a newspaper article from 1981 that talks about how they're beginning the process of widening Leatherwood Road, and there's a picture of Leatherwood Road, but to me it looks more like a path that's here. So what I will do is because I have these in paper, I'm going to talk about them, and Gary's going to pass a few out that you guys can see. I don't have enough for every single table, but I'll leave a copy up here. And when you guys are done today, you're welcome to come up and kind of look through these. And I have some also that I'll put with them of what the area looks like where the picture was taken now. So in 1981, they began the process of building the park. And our park kind of just came out of the wilderness. If you think of Leatherwood Road and you drive down past park headquarters and you go down Leatherwood Road to Leatherwood Ford and you cross the bridge, all of that had to be engineered, and the engineering was incredible. So we were lucky enough when our park was designed and built that it wasn't built by the National Park Service. We're not really good builders. But because Howard Baker was on the committee that funded the Army Corps of Engineers and not the National Park Service, he was able to give money to the Army Corps of Engineers, and they're the ones that actually came in and designed and built this. They're used to building things like army bases, and they're used to building things like ports. All the major ports in the United States were built by the Army Corps of Engineers. They're used to building dams, that type of thing. So it's almost over-engineered, but because of that, it's kind of an interesting part to be at. So we have the newspaper article from Leatherwood Ford. There's also a picture that was taken on what is now the Bandy Creek side of the main bridge over there, and it doesn't look any better. One of our employees, her name is Teresa Ledford, and she's lived here most of her life. And her mother just passed away. Her mother was quite old. She was probably in her 90s, and she would tell the story of riding in a wagon down Leatherwood Road, and she would get out of the wagon because she was scared that it would tip over. So it was a really, really, really rugged road that is now a beautiful scenic route that you guys can take. But this is a picture of what Leatherwood Road looked like on the bridge side. And then this one is taken. This one's one of my favorite ones. This one shows them doing a survey, and it has power lines that are in there, and the power lines are still there. So when you first start going down Leatherwood Road, you pass headquarters and the ranger station, and you go down Leatherwood. Look at the very first curve that you come to that goes to the left. That's where this vehicle is sitting, looking back up towards the top of the plateau. So that one's in there. And there's a current picture of what this one looks like too. And then as I kind of going down with my pictures, I'm going down the gorge towards Sandy Creek. A lot of what is now Leatherwood Road was pretty much built right on the side of the mountain. There wasn't a lot under it to support it. This is where the expertise of dam builders comes in. And they actually it shows pictures of how strong the support was to actually hold the road up. And that's still there now. It's overgrown. This has been almost 50 years ago. But it's all overgrown now, but you can still see it when you go down there. Okay, so now we're down at Leatherwood Ford, and we come to the bridge itself. We have a massive, huge highway bridge that goes over the Big South Fork, and there's lots and lots of pictures of it being built. This one was taken in 1983. It took about a year for the bridge to be built, and we still use that bridge now. Are you doing okay back there? The next one is a picture of kind of from the Bailey Creek side looking down at the bridge itself. You can see how much earth and stuff they had removed to actually get the road in there. This is going up towards that curve that we always have trucks that get stuck on them. My very first week, I got stuck at Bailey Creek for 8 hours after 5 o'clock. Government employees, we like to leave at 5. But I got stuck there until about 10 o'clock at night because there was a truck stop. There's also, I'm going to talk real quick because I think I'm running out of time, but there's also one aerial photo that I'm going to leave for you guys to look at too. And this is of Bailey Creek itself before the visitor center was built. And I put a square in there, a square orange square, that shows where the visitor center ended up being there. So this is before the campgrounds, all that stuff. And then, as we're working our way down towards Baby Creek, this is a picture. There's a big dump truck, and this is Baby Creek Road that was actually built. It had to be bulldozed out of all the woods and everything that were there. Okay, and I threw in some pictures also of the Baby Creek complex once it was being built, with like the visitor center and what is now the maintenance building, and then the building I work in, which is the interpretive education center. Do you guys know what these buildings were originally? So we always had a visitor center, but because this was designed and built by the Army Corps of Engineers, they are used to doing things like on lakes, and they actually have they're like experts when it comes to recreation areas. I think they have the most in the whole country. So the big barn in the back was called the canoe barn, and you could rent canoes and all kinds of other equipment out of that one. And then the building that I work in was a store. It had refrigerator units like you have at 7-Eleven. You can open the glass doors. Those are still there. They're covered up. but it was a big wide open building. And then it became park headquarters for a few years, and now it's just offices that are in there. These buildings were designed to kind of look like rugby. You know, when I got here, I couldn't figure out what they were. The way that they're painted now, everything is tan in the park with the siding, but originally they were different colors, like they were at rugby. So the visitor center, for instance, was gray and it had dark blue trim painted on it, and the building I'm in was bright yellow and it had burgundy trim painted on it. So it looked a little bit more like rugby back in the day when it was first built. And then I have one of just the visitor center itself that I'll leave for you guys to look at. And then there's some pictures of the stables that are in here. You know, because Big South Fork was designated as a national river and a recreation area, it's a little bit different than other national parks. There's only 2 national river and recreation areas in the country. The National River Park protects the river itself. We can't change anything about the river. We can't construct anything down by the river. Everything kind of has to stay in the gorge like it looks like now. We can't do much down there. But the recreation part of our legislation allows us to do things that other national parks can't. So we allow hunting, we allow trapping, we allow ATV use during hunting season for like big game. All of that is, horses, you can ride horses here, you can bring your dog on trails. All of that in most national parks is completely unheard of. So because we're a recreation area, and that was purposefully done by Howard Baker, he met a lot with not only environmental groups, but he met with conservation groups who said things like, hunting's a very important part of Scott County, we really like it. Places that you're going to be putting into a national park are places that we usually like to go hunting. So that's one of the reasons why it became a recreation area, along with national. And then lastly, I have a picture of the dedication ceremony that took place. This was in 1986. And you can see the park ranger there. His name, he was the first superintendent. His name was Vial, last name was V-I-A-L. And then you have the Army Corps engineers. Because they're part of the Army itself, they have different uniforms than we do. But they have a big key that we still have. It's in our collections and it's dated from 1986. And we're turning over Bailey Creek to the National Park Service. So the Army Corps engineers kind of ran the park, built the park from 1974, technically up until 1991, which is really weird. That doesn't happen in other national parks. But by 1986, Bailey Creek was done. They turned it over to the National Park Service to run, and then officially we got the park in 1991. Does anybody have any questions about anything? I know it was kind of a quick spiel, but I was hoping you guys would want to go down memory lane just as much as I did, and y'all are from here, so I'm hoping that you'll recognize some of the places in those pictures. I'm the only Daniel in the park, so if you're ever out there and you need anything, please let me know. But thank you guys so much.
Wonderful.
Thank you, Ranger Daniel, and we have a little gift for you. So, some local honey.
I didn't introduce Gary, but this is Gary Cruz, and he's kind of our HR guru in the park. We love him. Thank you, Gary. Thank you guys for today.
All right, so you're probably wondering why I'm up here. I'm not the acting president of the chamber. We've got a few that are out sick, so I'm having to fill in for Miss Kathy, but I kind of overstepped and jumped ahead. But this year we are kind of changing things up. We're honoring our past with reflection. We're celebrating our present, but admiration, and we're looking to our future with song. Therefore, we had Rick Southport to give us a little bit of history there. Thank you all so much for that. In your booklet, though, if you'll notice, there is a history section there of the Chamber of Presidents. Also has the minutes from the first meeting and notes and some picks from our past. So appreciate Stacy finding all this stuff and bringing it to our attention. But the Chamber has been active in Scott County since 1955. So with that, we want to continue on. So our next presenter is Mead, and he will be introducing our personal leader.
Okay, so I'm going to apologize in advance because it's going to take me a minute. I got a lot to say, but just bear with me. I will not be as long-winded as Stacy usually is. I promise you. Every year I say the same thing, and that is the Person of the Year recognition is centered on one criteria, and that is simply someone who goes above and beyond and makes Scott County a better place to live. And if you think back to our very first recipient, which was Amy Martin almost 10 years ago, and then our most recent recipient was Randy Burge last year. Both of those folks and everybody in between really embodied that criteria of making Scott County a better place. And this year's recipient is certainly no different, Kelly Walker. And each of them makes Scott County a better place in their own way. And for Kelly, it's primarily through her work at the Children's Center. You know, the Children's Center is a demanding job. It is a stressful job. It's a job that most of us really don't want to think about because, quite frankly, we don't want to think about the fact that there are kids in our community that are being physically abused and sexually abused and neglected. But it's happening every single day. And if it were not for the Children's Center, most of those kids would not have anyone to advocate on their behalf. But because of the Children's Center, they have someone that will stand up and fight for them. And I think if anybody who's involved in Scott County's justice system was standing here, they would tell you that the Children's Center of the Cumberlands is one of the most important assets that we have in Scott County. And Kelly Walker is the face of the Children's Center. Obviously, Kelly didn't start the Children's Center, and Kelly didn't do it alone. A lot of her co-workers are here today. But Kelly is the one who has kept it going. She's kept it strong. And basically, she has devoted most of her adult life to making life better for kids in our community that are facing demons really that most of us can't even imagine. But I want to take you back about 2 years ago. That's where this story starts, and it's a story that most people in this room know. But 2 years ago, Kelly and her husband Dustin had just started a new business that they were operating on the side, and it was going well. They were expecting their third child, their first son, so things were going well. And then Kelly and Dustin got blindsided. And first they found out as their pregnancy progressed, it was not going as well as would have been hoped. And of course, ultimately, they lost their son killed shortly after his birth. That's a tragedy that I don't think anybody can really imagine how that would impact a family unless you have walked that walk. But Kelly being Kelly, and Kelly's faith being what it is, she was able to turn tragedy into something positive. Because listen, it would have been easy to be bitter and question and say, why me? She didn't do that. Instead, she found in Kip's closet, even while she's dealing with the grief of losing her son and coping with that, she starts this nonprofit effort to memorialize and honor her son, but also to generate donations for the kids in Scott County who really need a hand, and that is the kids at the Children's Center that have been abused and neglected. And then in the middle of all that, while that's going on, she finds out that she has cancer, and that's something that someone Kelly's age should not have to deal with. But not only does she find out she's got cancer, but she finds out she's got a very aggressive form of cancer, and she's literally going to have to fight for her life. And that would be a devastating diagnosis. Losing a child would be a devastating experience. Dealing with both of those two things at the same, almost simultaneously, I think would be more than a lot of people could probably deal with. I think human nature would be to withdraw, to isolate yourself, throw up barriers, spend your days in bed with a quilt pulled over your head and not even dealing with people. I think that would be my reaction. I think that would probably be the reaction of a lot of us in this room. But that was not Kelly's reaction. Kelly's reaction was she has spent the last 2 years basically being Kelly and doing the same things that she's always done. She's continued to work. And she is, the Soul Sisters benefit auction for the Children's Center last month, when they had that, Kelly was right there front and center. She continues to show up at these meetings every month that she can. And in and out of the hospital, through treatments, through surgeries, she has continued to take care of the business of the Children's Center and do the different things, the different ways that she's involved in this community. And obviously she can't do it every single day, but every day that she can. And even from her hospital bed sometimes, I was telling a story a month ago, this past November, when the first benefit auction was held for the Children's Center. Kelly didn't know that they were having that auction, and she was actually in the hospital at the time. But when she found out that they were having that auction, the first thing she did was she made a phone call to make sure that food was delivered so that everybody that was working at the auction would be fed. And that single moment and that single thing summed up everything that Kelly Walker is about, because she's in the hospital, far away from home, far away from her kids, and her first thought is to make sure that those workers that are working on behalf of the Children's Center are taken care of. And that symbolizes the way that she is constantly putting other people around her ahead of herself. And that's the thing. Person of the Year is not about dealing with cancer, because there's a lot of people in Scott County that have cancer. And it's not about dealing with grief, because the past 2 years has taught us anything. There are a lot of people in Scott County that are dealing with grief right now. And it's not even about dealing with both things at the same time. And it's certainly not about the Chamber of Commerce saying, well, Kelly's got cancer, let's make her personal. That is not what it is. But here's the thing. Anybody who knows Kelly, whether it's friend, coworker, whatever, they will tell you that she is the person, and always has been, since long before any of this stuff started. Kelly Walker is the person who is always showing up at the most unexpected time to drop words of encouragement or a note of inspiration or doing something to try to uplift people around her, to try to help them get through whatever it is that they're going through, get through their day, get through their life. And somebody was telling me a while back, they said they were talking to Kelly, and Kelly said, I'm praying for you. And they said that struck me, because they said, I should be praying for Kelly. But with all the things that she's got, that she should be praying for herself, she says, I'm praying for you. I don't have the troubles that she's got. And they said that stuck with me. But again, that's who she is. And that's who she continues to be. And like I said, anybody who knows her will tell you that even now, even after everything that she's gone through and everything that she is going through, she is still the person that is trying to uplift the people around her and make their life better. And I cannot think of a more selfless, a better example of selflessness than that. So I said a moment ago, Kelly could have chosen to withdraw and to isolate herself. She didn't do that. She has chosen to be upfront and open and transparent in her battle. Basically, she has shared with us, this community, the most personal and difficult time of her life. And in doing that, she has inspired an entire community, more than she knows, probably more than you will ever know. And I think I speak for different people in this room when I say that watching the way that Kelly has handled herself and handled this battle over the past 2 years has inspired us to want to be better. So the 2021 Scott County Chamber of Commerce and Independent Hero Person of the Year is Kelly Walker.
Definitely gonna make it short and sweet. I'm not a pretty crier either, so I apologize. When Dustin and I started, we were actually on the way home from somewhere, and after we lost the baby, and we were talking about Kip's closet, and it was just kind of an ideal at that point. But the way that the community showed up for that endeavor and to help on our son and help the children of Scott County was amazing. And I may have had the brainchild to start it or to put the feet on the ground to do it, to draw some people in together to make it happen. but the people sitting at this table are the heart too behind it. The Lord has blessed my family tremendously, even through some terrible circumstances. When I was diagnosed with cancer, I remember sitting in the hospital room, and that's when we were talking about if we were going to make it public, if it was a journey that I wanted to even share with people. And I told Dustin, I can remember the conversation so vividly, but I said, I want people to know what the Lord can do. And I want people to know what the Lord's going to do through this situation, good or bad, on how my life turns out, whether I live or die. I want people to see God's glory through this. So let's just tell people. And I'll never ever forget leaving for surgery and seeing so many people in this room lined up on the side of that road, seeing me off for my first surgery. And it's just been about community. And I'm so blessed. And God's blessed me just tremendously. Ben, thank you so much for the kind words. Lord Jamie, Miss, for even, I don't know. I feel so undeserving. Because it's not about me, it's about Him. And to tell you my story, to tell you about the loss of our son, or the loss of basically my life over the past couple of years. I mean, I'm still living, but I've had to give a lot of things up. My life is definitely different. Dustin and I were just talking the other night on, like, we'll never probably normal again. We'll never know life as we knew it. But that's okay, because we know the Lord, and it's just about Him. So to tell you my story is to tell you of the Lord and the good that He's done, the kids that He's blessed me with, but not only that, but just an amazing community that stood behind me through the toughest time of my life. So from my heart to you, thank you so much for everybody in this room who continues to pray for me, who continues to pray for my family. My poor little husband's like a single dad some days because I'm just too sick to do anything. My mom and dad are here with me, and they've helped tremendously. Thank God I made the decision several years ago to go right beside my mom and dad because they have helped me just tremendously through this journey. And this group of ladies at this table have also been such a support in my life. So anyway, I've talked way too long, but I just wanted to thank you all from my heart. Just thank you all so much for everything that you've done for me and my family. Thank you.
And now Ms. Shanika Birchfield is going to introduce our industry.
This year's Industry of the Year is Thornway, HBD. Thornway has represented excellence in quality since 1883 and has delivered innovative solutions for the most challenging environments across air, sea, land, and space. Thornway produces one of the broadest lines of industrial rubber products available anywhere in the world. In 1986, B.F. Goodrich Industrial Rubber Products in Oneida, Tennessee was acquired. In 2003, it was a wholly owned subsidiary of HBD Industries. Thermoid hoses made at the Oneida plant has been used to carry fiber optic cable. I am just choked up because I should not have went after this. I'm so sorry, guys. Has carried fiber optic cable on the ocean floor since the early 1990s. And of course, those hoses have to be Tennessee orange, right? Thermoid products produced in Oneida are involved in exploration, production, and spill cleanups in the gas and oil industries across the world. And when the Titanic ship was found It was thermal hoses made at the Oneida plant that was used on the submarine that was seen in the documentary. Thermoid is one of the oldest, if not the oldest, industries left operating in Scott County. They've continued to provide employment for those in our area, for families. And of course, they graciously let us take over their entire plant every Christmas to line up the parade. So it is an absolute honor this year to introduce the Industry of the Year as Thermoid HVD.
I asked the two employees that came with me today if they wanted to come get this. I'm not very good at giving speeches, but very, very unexpected. I didn't really expect this. I think the two with me kind of knew this was happening, but I didn't know. Very proud to be part of this community and everything it represents. Thank you very much.
And I want to thank Jerome. If it wasn't for him, there would have been several of us that wouldn't have made it through our accounting classes at Rose State. So we appreciate you. It served you well, sir. Okay, at this time, to present our Business of the Year, Mike Barrett.
Okay, first I would like to thank Shanika for the one between me and Kelly, so I have a chance to catch my breath. We are here honoring our Business of the Year, which is Baby J's Pizza. They opened in early 2017. The pizza business comes naturally to the King family, with the three siblings having many years invested in making and selling pizzas to Scott counties. And as you listen to hear Mr. King, Mr. Wayne King talk about the pizza business, you soon realize that it's family along with customer service that guides its operating principles. The name Baby J's is derived from family. 5 of King's 7 grandchildren have names that start with J. There's James, Jace, Jazz, and Jaden. There's Jesse Wayne, who was named after his grandfather, who tragically died unexpectedly in April 13 at the age of just 8 weeks. At the end of the day, King, who is a Baptist pastor and a former mayoral candidate, in addition to a longtime fixture on the local business scene as a director of Scott County's Chamber of Commerce, says it's all about giving back to the community. And this is a direct quote. My whole purpose in this is to be able to continue to give something back to my community, he said, because it's been such a big support for me and my family. Mr. King, sir.
Well, not often I get caught without words. Sorry. Yeah, we appreciate this very much. Thank you. That's not why we went into the business. Provide some employment, provide an opportunity to give back to our community. Community is important to us. Without supporting one another, communities fall apart. And when they fall apart, lives deteriorate. I do have some other ventures in addition to Baby J's, and that's the reason why. I do some work with domestic violence, trying to help those individuals change their attitudes, and then also am working with drug endangered children, trying to make changes there, because our youth need to have hope. They need to know that people care. They need to know that they have opportunities beyond what they see every day. So, from all of us at Baby J's, thank you ever so much.
at this time, we're going to recognize our Board of Directors from 2021. Melissa J. Hay, Citizens Gas Utility District. Stacy also has a certificate for each one of you if you'll grab these, and it's call your name. Greg Jeffers, Custom Greg, and also the Industrial Development Board of Scott County. Brandon Ryan.
You won't change your name. Yeah, Vantage Point Financial Planning.
Vantage Point Financial Planning. Christy Harness, Scott County Family Justice Center. Kim Kidd, TCAT, Huntsville, Oneida. Amy Knight Bowling, One Bank, Tennessee. Linda Burge, For the Love of Paws. Kathy West, Alkley. Craig Allen, Highland Reynolds. Shonda Duncan with the Scott County Shelter Society. Mike Baird, United Cumberland Bank. Kelly Walker, Children's Center of the Cumberlands. Paul Strunk, J&M Grading, Scott County Commission. Sharon Wilson, Rose State Community College. Al Lethwich, Big South Florida Medical. Jim Johnson, United Cumberland Bank. Virginia Bruce, South Florida TAC. Diane Stevens, Holland Telephone Cooperative. Ben Garrett, Independent Herald. Erica Schmeltner, Brimstone Recreation. Mayor Jeff Kittles, Scott County Government. Wayne King, Randy J's Pizza and High Five Solutions. Shanika Birchfield, First National Bank. Cheryl Cribbett, Cabins of Oak Run. Let's give everybody a big hand. I've run Stacy to death here. We would also like to recognize Stacy for the work that she does for the Chamber and the ID Board. We couldn't ask for better. She puts in a lot of time and effort that is beyond her normal hours, and you know you're not going to get that with just the. Stacy truly loves Scott County, and we're blessed to have her. So thank you, Stacy, for all you do. The grants that she writes and things like that, it helps in more ways than one. And a lot of things she does might even be behind the scenes that people might not understand. That hey, Stacy had a hand in helping get that done. So let's give Stacy. And before I forget, thank you to the Senior Citizen Center here. The meal was great. Ms. Kathy and her staff always do a fantastic job. So let's thank them for our meal. Okay, I'm the one who's going to get to introduce some of these, and my name's on here, so I may just say me. So our 2022 nominated directors, as suggested from the nominating committee, that met in early January. These two-year terms will expire in 2024. Myself, Jacob Billingsley, Untitled Electric Cooperative. Melissa J. Hay, Citizens Gas Utility. Greg Jeffers, Custom Gregs, and ID Board, Scott County. Brandon Ryan with Vantage Point Financial. Christy Harness, Scott County Family Justice Center. Kim Kidd, TCAT, Oneida, Huntsville. Amy Knight Bowling, One Bank of Tennessee. And Linda Burge for Woven Halls. Are there any other nominations? If not, I'll call for a vote to approve the recommendations for the renewal of the current directors to serve a two-year term ending in 2024. Motion by Hal. For a second. Shanika, second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, so our nominated directors that are being replaced due to stepping down and retiring, or that no longer wish to serve. We have Robbie Burris with Burris Insurance replacing Craig Allen. Cody Bolus with Black Cat and Music on Main replacing Paul Strunk. Do I have any other nominations? If not, do I have a motion to approve this?
Motion.
Motion by Wayne. Second. Second by Ben. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. And now we'll turn it back over to Ben.
Okay, so we will recognize our outgoing directors for 2021, officers, sorry, for 2021. And our president for 2021, unfortunately, she's unable to be here today because she's a little bit ill, and that was Kathy West, president from the past year. Vice president from the past year, who's also unable to be here today, was Shonda Duncan. And treasurer for the past year, obviously, as always, Jacob Billy. So a big thank you to all three of those folks for serving for the past year. And the nominating committee's recommendation of directors for officers for 2022, we have recommended that Shanika Birchfield be the president. Shanika served back in 2016 as president, but that's 6 years ago, so it's time. And you've seen her hobbling around here today. She was reluctant at first, but basically we held her down and kicked her in the kneecap. And we said, now, are you willing, or do you want to go for the other knee? And so she said she would do it. Vice President recommendation is Sharon Wilson, Rome State Community College. And treasurer recommendation, as always, he doesn't really have a choice, Jacob Billy.
Bankers, you know what a nightmare that is to switch that over. Just saying.
So at this time, I'll open the floor to nominations for directors, if anyone has any other suggestions. Hearing none, can I have a motion to accept the committee's recommendation? Got a motion by Hal Leftwich, second by Mike Barrett. All in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carries.
All right, so as we started, we had Kayla Chambers, who was giving us the beautiful music to listen to. Wanted to recognize her for her performance today. She's a 17-year-old musician from right here in Oneida. She enjoys singing and playing since she was a young lady at Low Gap Baptist Church, where her grandfather was a pastor. She began learning the guitar at age 11, and soon after learned to play the mandolin and piano, and also learned to sing. She is currently a senior at Oneida High, and she enjoys performing various events and giving music lessons to children in the community. So I know she's not here, but we would like to recognize her and appreciate her for what she did. I'm not the outgoing president, but on behalf of Kathy, I'm sure she'd like to thank everyone. Appreciate you all being here today. Don't want to keep you any longer than necessary, but Stacy has something else to say.
So if you'll just look under, this is the meeting. I thought I was being clever. Under your chargers, good luck. There was actually, if you've got a gold star, you'll get the flower arrangement on your table. Now, the flower arrangement lifts out, this gold piece does not go. So there, you know. Also, somebody's seat has a gold star under it, and if you have that, you're going to get this homemade jelly and jam from your dinner bar.
Underneath your seat,
Underneath your seat.
you should have a gold star.
Yeah, if your table
Whoever has that, this is
Now,